I have seen a great many compensation systems that are abominations and lead to all kinds of behavior that I would regard not as in the interest of shareholders. But I don't think we've had much of that at Berkshire. Charlie?
Yeah, I think if you talk generally about stock option plans in America, you see a lot of terrible behavior caused, and no doubt they do a lot of good at other places. But whether they do more good than harm overall, I wouldn't know. I think in particular, you have a corporation where a man has risen to be CEO, and he now has hundreds of millions of dollars in the stock of the company. He's been loyal to the company, and the company's been loyal to him for decades. And he has his directors vote him a great stock option annually to preserve his loyalty to the company and his enthusiasm for the business when he's already old. I think it's demented.
How about when they grant options as he leaves the company?
And I also think it's immoral. I think that there comes a time when and I don't think you would improve the behavior of the surgeons at the Mayo Clinic or the partners of Cravath, Swaine and Moore if you gave the top people stock options in their 60s. I mean, by that time you ought to have settled loyalties, and you ought to be thinking more about the right example for the company than whether you take another 100 million for yourself.
Yeah, well, we had a case. We've inherited some option plans because companies we merged with had them, and some cases they got settled for cash at the time, some cases they continued on depending on the situation. But more money has been made from options at Berkshire by accident, and this is not, it just happened that way, but more money was made by people that had options on General Re stock during a period when General Re contributed to a decrease in value of Berkshire. So we had all of the other managers essentially in a great many cases turning in fine results, and we had a bad result at General Re, and yet more money by a significant margin was made under options at General Re than has been made probably by all other entities combined. But it was an accident, but that's the point. It can lead to extremely capricious compensation results that have no bearing on the performance of the people. That in some cases get great benefits, and in other cases people did great jobs, and their efforts were negated by results elsewhere. So it would be very capricious at Berkshire. You can argue that at Berkshire, for those that succeed me and Charlie, that anybody that is in the very top position at Berkshire has got the job of allocating resources for the whole place. There could be a logically constructed option plan for that person, and it would make some sense because they are responsible for what takes place overall. But a logically constructed plan would have a cost of capital built into it for every year. We don't pay out any dividends, so why should we get money from you free? We could put it in a savings account and it would grow in value without us doing anything. And a fixed price option over 10 years would accrue dramatic value to whoever was running the place, if they had a large option, for putting the money in a savings account or in government bonds. So there has to be a cost of capital factor in to make options equitable. In my view, that there can be cases where they make sense. They should not be granted at below the intrinsic value of the company. I mean, the market, a CEO who says, my stock is ridiculously low when somebody comes around and wants to buy the company, but then grants himself an option at a price that he's just gotten through saying is ridiculously low, that bothers me. So if somebody says, we don't want to sell this company for less than $30 this year because it's going to be worth a lot more later on, my notion is that the option should be at $30 even if the stock is 15. Otherwise you have actually a premium built in for having a low stock price in relation to value, and I've never gotten too excited about that. Charlie, do you have any further thoughts on options?
Well, we've been We're so different from the rest of corporate America on this subject that we can sound like a couple of Johnny One Notes, but I don't think we ever quite tire of the subject. A lot is horribly wrong in corporate compensation in America, and the system of using stock options on the theory they really don't cost anything has contributed to a lot of gross excess, and that excess is not good for the country. Aristotle said that systems work better when people look at the different outcomes and basically appraise them as fair. And when large percentages of people look at corporate compensation practices and think of them as unfair, it's not good for the country.
It will be hard to change, though, because basically the corporate CEOs have their hands on the switch. I mean, they control the process. You can have comp committees and all of that, but as a practical matter, I've been on 19 public boards. Charlie's been on a lot of them, and in the end, the CEOs tend to get pretty much what they want, and what they want tends to go up every year because they see other people getting more every year, and there's a ratcheting effect, and the consultants fan the flames, and it's very difficult to get change. And right now, you've got corporate CEOs descending upon Washington to doing everything from trying to persuade to threaten your elected representatives to not have options expensed. And I think it's kind of shameful, actually, because this group who was getting fed very well under the system does not want to have those what clearly is a compensation expense recorded, because they know they won't get as much. I mean, it's that simple, and it's not based on anything much more complicated. Charlie, do you want to talk about comp a little?
Well, as the shareholders know, our system is different from that of most big corporations. We think it's less capricious. The stock option system will give extraordinarily liberal awards sort of by accident to some people, and it will deny other people any reward at all at some different time, in spite of great contributions made by the people who are getting nothing. So, except where we inherit it, we just don't use it. But we must be in a minority far less than 1%, right?
It's where we like to be, right? No, it's interesting. We inherited some stock options at Berkshire, primarily in the General Re transaction, and not through any failing of anybody, or there's no aspersion to be cast, but at all. But those options turned out to be quite valuable. They would not have been valuable if General Re had been left alone as a standalone company. They profited from the fact that other parts of Berkshire did well, and the money went to the people that had these options, who delivered nothing to the performance of Berkshire for a while. Now that is not an indictment of anybody in the least at Gen Re. It's an indictment of an option system which represents a lottery ticket and also a royalty on the passage of time, because as you know, an option holder has benefits from retained earnings and benefits not at all from dividends. And that puts his interest, maybe quite contrary to that of the shareholders. So we believe in paying for performance, but we believe in tying performance to what is actually under the reasonable control of the person that's being measured. And we